Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my live stream where we talk about photography and get together as a community and see what's new. How's everybody doing? I hope everyone's doing well. Thank you so much for joining me today. So today's topic, I just didn't really have anything too specific, but I always have things on my mind that changes day to day actually. What I feel about photography, how I feel about gear, and all the things that kind of go with it. The technical side, the social side, work and play. All these things for me are part of my life in terms of photography is parts of all. Uh, Photography is part of everything in my life, right? It just like I said, professionally, personally, all of that stuff. And I can see the chat window's not up, so let me see if I can fix that. 1 second. And we'll get right into the business. I gotta stop stealing everybody else's catchphrases, right? That's from Peter Forsgard, and let me see. I guess I should have my own. I don't think I have a catchphrase for my stuff, do I? Oh, let me try this. It's weird why this. Oh, there it goes. Okay, let me pull up my window again, and I see everybody's here. So I see Darko's here. Wow, he left a lot of messages here. Good morning. Excited this morning. I pre-ordered the Z50 Mark II. Sad a bit, hoped for IBIS. Only 20.9 megapixels, but that was not a deal breaker. Should be in November 24th by my photography shop. Feel great buying local. Yes. Always try to buy local if you can. Support your local camera shops. A lot of them these days, I guess, are pretty much family owned or individually owned, and depend on us as photographers to buy gear from them. And there's well, anyway, buy local. I don't want to. My local camera store. One of my favorites is District Camera. I'm very lucky to have two. The other one is Ace Photo. I haven't been there in a couple of years, but it's where I kind of bought my first photography gear, my first like tripod and lenses, things like that when I was back when I was shooting Nikon. But then since I discovered district cameras, like a half an hour closer, of course, that's my primary store now. And then Darko says, one thing I was surprised with was the lack of hype by Nikon from the bird and wildlife photographers. Okay, I guess they do not want to hurt the Z9, Z8 sales. Yeah, could be. Um, I do not expect the Z9 Bird Eye AF, but Kai Wong's vid was promising, showing tracking modes of birds. Okay, and good morning, Gordon. Good to see you. Matrix style thumbnail. Yeah, I just put the stream up this morning and couldn't think of a thumbnail or a topic, so I just said, okay, cameras, lenses, and me. But I do, like I said, once I get into it, somehow I can jibber jabber for like hours about photography. Um, And Seraphin's here. Wayne Cox, good morning. And howdy, Seraphin. And Osman, good to see you from the UK. You guys are so lucky over there. It's like within a couple of hours in any direction, you have these beautiful landscapes. It's amazing. And then Wayne says, I'm considering a full frame mirrorless for adapting lenses, not sure where I want to go. uh, well, I'll tell you what I prefer doing. Um, Well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. That'll be part of the conversation. And Thomas is here. Good to see you from Atlanta, Georgia. Awesome. Awesome. And good afternoon from Puglia. I hope I pronounced that right. I don't even know where that is. I gotta look that up. Puglia. I mean, it sounds familiar. Oh, I see. Out there near Italy, or is it part of Italy? No, that's Apulia. That's not Puglia. I typed in Puglia. Oh, give me some idea where that is. I have no idea. I'm curious. Okay. Oh, it is. Yeah, Jeff says Italy. And Jamie says, I received my 12 to 42.8 and as good as everyone says. Yes, it is such an awesome lens. I can't speak highly enough of that. And I always say the 12 to 40 with like the EM1 or OM1 is like bread and butter. Those things just go together. And of course, it's great on all the other OM system Olympus cameras uh, because they all use basically the same sensors and processing. And let's see, Andrew Cho, good morning from Canada. Ooh, it's cold. Whenever I think of Canada, I just get a chill. Uh, and then Andrew's here. Good to see you. Oh, sign of getting old, dribbling out of my glass here. And then Ian says, I wanted to get back to you as promised regarding the 150 to 600. Tried it, returned it, and so much prefer the 300 f4 with and without the 2x teleconverter. Interesting. Because, right now that lens is on sale for 2000, right? 2000 bucks, like 7 or $800 off. I'm kind of tempted by it. But yeah, I'm just more into camera bodies right now because I do have the 300 f4 and the 1.4, and that's been awesome. Might be worth saving up for the 150 to 400 though. I'm gonna try and put a video out for that next week. It's just a first impression. I only had an hour with it, but yeah, I was pretty impressed in that first hour with that lens. It was pretty amazing. With my friend Ben from the Narrowband channel. Uh, also, that reminds me, I saw a video this morning. I haven't watched it all the way through from Roberto Di Donato and Jerry, his dog companion, um, family, his kid, so to speak, um, is starting to eat again. He just he recovered from some surgery to cut some cancer out, and so that's great news. So very good to hear, Roberto, if you're here. I couldn't be happier. I'm gonna watch the video later. I just kind of skimmed through some of the parts, and then I had to prep for the stream a little bit. Prepping for me for a stream is like eat breakfast, have some coffee, and put some eye drops in, so I'm not bloodshot the whole stream because they dry out pretty easily. And uh, and that's it. And then But I'm serious. I'll sit for hours sometime, not hours, but I'll sit down for a while and just where do I want to start? Because everybody's streaming now and talking about everything, and I don't want to just regurgitate a lot of things that they say. Because, for example, like Jimmy did a great video yesterday or the day before on uh, "Our Camera Company's Crazy," I think was the title, and basically he just came on and talked about his conversations uh, at at some event he went to with other photographers. The idea and the gist of it was that camera companies are just not making cameras for photographers anymore. And I thought it was a very interesting point of view. I'm not sure I agree with it or the conclusions that he had. I don't feel quite as strongly as he does in that video. So I wouldn't say I disagree. I just don't quite feel as strongly. Because I really like the cameras coming out these days. And yeah, they got a lot of bells and whistles that I'll probably never use or use very rarely. But there's a lot of really nice cameras out there. The Z52 just came out, very nice. And uh, you know, Nikon's just been killing it. Let's be honest, they got some great cameras out there, as they all do, and that's the direction I want to go over altogether. But let me catch up on some of the chat again. Darko says, "Do you feel the OM5 Mark II would have a full suite of tracking like the OM1 Mark II? It better. I'm just saying it better. If they just add a USB-C port to it and a couple other bells and whistles, that's going to be a wasted effort, or missed opportunity, to really make something special. Not that the OM51 Mark One is not a special camera. It's really a great camera. But when you come out with something new, given the competition that's out there, I mean, there's so many cameras in that price range, including virtually some full frame cameras. Not that they can compete with the OM5, in my opinion, but uh, in that price range, consumers have a lot of things to look at, and they need to really they need to crank out the very best they can in that price point. It's just not the same as it was, say, 10 years ago when they had the original EM5 come out, where there's a fantastic camera, game changer. There's so many videos on that camera. At an OM5 Mark II needs to be basically the OM1 in a smaller package at a lower price point. And I really feel like, I mean, the plastic body is fine. Everybody's doing plastic now, but they need to either go all metal again, because I went to the camera event last week and I looked at the XM5, which just came out, and uh, I'm not interested in that camera, but it's really well made, feels solid in the hand, nice metal body to it. I I get that there was sort of a rush to make smaller and lighter cameras, and I think that's why a lot of the entry level budget cameras are plastic. So the OM10, if it ever comes out, should be plastic. It's fine, nobody cares. But the EM5 or OM5 Mark II, I think it needs to be just feel a little bit more premium, and a metal body would do that, and photographers, I think, would appreciate a metal body more. And not like I said, I'm fine with plastic bodies, honestly. It's not a deal breaker for me, but I'm thinking from the perspective of a potential buyer, and it would certainly make it more attractive to me as well. But uh, anyone looking at that level camera at that price point, that would be just one more thing that would set it apart, because it'll have a substantial feeling to it, when you pick it up. Oh, anyhow, Canada, you still get a chill. I spent Tuesday hiking over 2 feet of snow in our local mountains. Some great photos, although cloudy. Almost every photo looked black and white. Yeah. Um, and I see Paul is here. Good to see you, Paul. And I did respond to your email. Never mind. I was gonna say, let me respond here, but I think I did. I've been out this morning getting some shots of autumn colors at the local wood. Cool. There's very little color left here. Um, I mean, you can see spots of it here and there, but overall, it's pretty much brown, and I'd say probably 50% of the leaves have come down, maybe 20%, actually, probably 20% of the leaves have fallen off, depending on the tree. But gosh, I don't look forward to raking and leaf blowing. I have like, uh, I just call somebody to do it, but the people are so expensive. I mean, to hire somebody, it's like I could just buy another camera for the price that I'd have to pay somebody to clean my lawn. Oh, And then Harold says, totally agree about the OM5 Mark II comment. Update the USB and bring the OM1 to the table. Yeah. I mean, and then it would be extremely competitive because the OM1 Mark 1, Mark 2, these are really excellent cameras. And, just having a smaller body at a lower price point, which is what the OM5, EM5 has always been, uh, since the Mark II, I think. I don't know why my voice is so cracking this morning. Um, and then Andrew says, thankfully we still have quite a lot of color here in East Anglia, England. Okay, cool. I, oh, anyhow, so I have a stack of cameras, as you can see. I keep buying them. I can't help it. But I was thinking about the cameras that I do buy and why do I buy them? And aside from my initial run through the Olympus cameras and just buying a new one every time a new one came out, with the exception of the EM10, the EM10 Mark II is so good. I didn't buy the Mark III or Mark IV. Uh, Partially because they took some features away, uh, but partially I think because they went to a plastic body. A lot of different reasons, but there wasn't any substantial upgrade there for me. And but I did go to the M5 Mark III, but I didn't step up to the OM5. So again, I'm a little more tempered with my camera purchases when they come to uh, individual. Well, I guess the best way to put it is I need to see something unique, different, or special about the camera before I buy it. And going from an EM5 Mark III to the OM5, there wasn't anything particularly unique, special, or uh, different about it from my EM5 Mark III for me to upgrade. Same thing with my OM1 to the OM1 Mark II. I think I'm going to skip that generation and wait for the Mark III. Potentially. We'll have to see what the Mark III is. I may not even go to the Mark III. Not that it wouldn't be superior in every way to what I have, but it really needs to bring something substantially new to the table. Um, and uh, so that's where I'm with Olympus OM Systems is I'm very content with my EM5 Mark III, my OM1, and my EM10 Mark II, which is just barely holding together for this live stream. I use it as my B cam right now. I don't know if it'll show. Yeah, it's working. Oops, I didn't set it up yet. Let me turn that off and point it. There we go. Oh, you can see all my stuff here. This is how I watch the live stream, as if it's any surprise. But uh, let me tilt it back this way, because you don't need to see my screens. You're seeing the same screens I am on your screen. So what the heck was I talking about? Let me go back to the main camera. Um, let's see. David Black says, I'm guessing the 5 series will become the entry level. There will be an OM3 between the 1 and the 5. Oh, interesting. I hadn't heard that. Maybe that's a new rumor. And then I have an EM10 Mark III, my first 4/3 camera. Bought it because I had a Nikon D90 and needed a better camera. And the EM10 was so cheap with cashback and 2 lenses. Looked like a toy gun. Yeah. Now the D90 is a fabulous camera. I hope you kept it. That's really one of the benchmark cameras of Nikon, in my opinion. Uh, so it was their professional level APS-C camera at the time, and I think it was one of the first cameras to come out with video, right? At the very least, maybe the first Nikon camera to have video, but it might have been one of the first DSLRs to have video on it. Uh, so it's and the lenses. Oh yeah, so I want to get back to I think Wayne's thing. And Anthony says, "Oh, finally decided the OM1 Mark II and the 300 f4 Pro. What company do you recommend for SD cards for this camera?" Okay, so Anthony, congratulations. I know you've had a lot of anticipation over the past year or two that you've been watching my channel and exchanging emails, and I really enjoy getting the emails you send and the conversations we've had. Um, but the OM1, you need to get the V60 cards, a V as in Victor, and they're going to go on sale. Don't buy them right now, unless you plan on going out tomorrow and shooting, you know, clearing your buffer out, maxing out your buffer all the time. But the PNY V60s, actually, I have them in my camera here. I can just show you physically. Right now, I think this is the 256. You want to get the 256 card. It's the best bang for buck. Uh, V60. Let's see if I can get that closer. There's a little V60 up in the corner, the Elite X Pro 60. You don't need to spend the extra for the V90. And then get two of them. And when they're on sale, just to give you some perspective, I paid $36 or $37 for this when it's on sale. Normal sale price is like $50. And other manufacturers like um, SanDisk and others, you're going to pay $60 or more for 256. What's the other one? Lexar, ProGrade. These guys are $60, $70, $80 for the same card, same rating. And I don't think they're any better. So the V60, there are SD card. The other way you can recognize, in case this is not available or there's a better deal on something, this have dual, you want to make sure it has the dual slots here versus say something like this, which is a single slot or single row of pins versus a double row, right? This is your standard SD card. This is your V60 UHS-2 card. And then these come in two varieties, V60 and V90. And I've put V90 cards in here. I bought those initially and I paid like for 256 gig card is like $200, okay? On sale, a little less, 20, 30 bucks. But 200 bucks for a 256 gig card, V90 versus $38, what I paid for that. And the performance in the camera is identical. There is no difference in terms of clearing the buffer. So what is the performance? If you take a standard SD card, right, like the blue one here, versus the V60 card, in my OM1, and the OM1 Mark II has a bigger buffer, but in my OM1, when I fill up the 92, 93 frames in the buffer, it takes 15 or 16 seconds to clear out on a V60 card, okay, like this. On a regular SD card, it takes about 45 to 50 seconds to clear out the buffer. So it's a huge, huge difference. And it's because and it's all relative to how you shoot, because most of us don't just smash the shutter button until the buffer fills and then wait for it to clear out, right? Most of us, I think, do burst shooting. Hopefully, we do bursts, right? Just a quick burst, 1, 2 seconds, 3 seconds as the bird's flying, when it's in the right, you know, all the composition things that you do when you're doing birds in flight. I found burst shooting, it minimizes coming home with, 3,000 photos on your card. Uh, and and uh, it makes efficient use of the buffer in the camera. As it's clearing out, you can continue to shoot. The V90 card, when you put that in, the V90 card is rated for almost double the speed of that one. Well, not double, but about 30% faster. In practice, in the camera, there's no difference. It's still 15 or 16 seconds to clear the buffer. So no, no, don't waste your money on V90s. Buy V60s. Wait for them to go on sale. If you can't wait, the current prices are around $50 to $55 for each one. Still decent, right? If you need to go, but if you can wait maybe another couple of weeks for sale on these, and I'm gonna have them on my deals page. If in case you guys don't know, let me just do this. This video is sponsored by me, okay? Uh, Go to my deals page. If there's a good deal on memory cards, I'll put them there. Right now, there isn't any good deal on the UHS-2 cards. The UHS-1 cards, there's very good deals right now, but UHS-2, the V60 cards, there's not. And then I guess I think I saw another comment here from you. Let me just, because the chat's a little bit slow for me. Is this it? No. I'll come back to that one. Are you familiar with the Pro Master rugged card? I've seen them. Uh, Either another photographer uses them or whatever. They are solid. They feel really strong. But your workflow in the field, you should never take the cards out of your camera, right? The workflow that I have is, I better put this card, better put this back in, is I have two memory cards in here. I set it up to write to both cards at the same time. So I always have a copy on card slot number 2. Card slot number 1, I put everything in before I leave the house, and then when I get home, I take out card slot number 1 only, take all the, load them all off onto my computer, erase this card, either in the computer, via Adobe Bridge. Adobe Bridge will erase it all for you. Or when I put it back in, I format it so that it's clean. I do not format card slot number 2. And it's only after I do my editing and everything has been backed up, because I have a backup drive that I use, that I will format card slot number 2. And I normally don't format it until it's full anyway. So I have backups of several photo shoots on card slot number 2. And that's why I recommend 256 gig for photographers. If you're a videographer, probably you want to go 512, but 256 gig for photographers, assuming you use the same workflow I do, you'll have several photo shoots backups on card slot number 2. So if anything happens, you lost your pictures from your vacation, which someone emailed me the other day about that. If they have them on card slot number 2, they could have probably recovered them. And that's my workflow. Um, so having a rugged card, I don't see a need for a super rugged card, because you're not changing them in the field, right? Ideally. If you are changing your card in the field on a regular basis, that's a different story. I can't think of too many scenarios that you would need to, but if there is a scenario for you that you need to change the card in the field, what I noticed about the rugged cards is they're very rigid. They feel like metal, and maybe it is metal, but they are very rigid. I think internally underneath the shell, the casing of these rugged cards is probably identical to anything else you would buy. And the only thing that happens, one of the other things I noticed about the rugged cards, it's going to be impossible to see here. Let me focus first. But you see these little plastic ridges over time. and I'm talking years, these things break off, okay? They get brittle and break off and can jam your camera, yada, yada, yada. I mean, it can be a problem. Uh, the the rugged cards I noticed don't have the these little ridges in them, right? Plastic, you know, things. So you're not gonna have that problem ever with a rugged card. So you can buy a rugged card, uh, if it's something you're gonna be changing in the field a lot, because you take the cards out, you put them in your bag or in a little sleeve, whatever. You know, you take care when you use your cards, of course, in the field, but all the same, plastic gets brittle over time. You know, it's just inevitable, right? And that's the only problem I've noticed with cards that have that, right? And I'm pretty sure my PNYs have that as well. The PNYs don't have as many. Look, there's two there instead of on every slot. There's only two. So less less of a problem on these cards. But the the bendability, right, is there, right? Because it's just plastic. The rough card, the rugged cards, definitely very solid, and I'm sure, you know, will be, but I don't see a scenario where you're changing cards in the field. If that is in your workflow, then you might want to consider that. Okay, let's see. And let me go up to, and Darko says the master control center. Yeah, I love my setup now. I got one more thing I need to add. Um, and then I'll be complete. What I need is basically a USB charging station. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if I can get it to this charging block. I paid $25 as one of my deals, but it has the LCD display here for me to uh, see what things are charging at. Like what? Why is there 5 volts going out of it now? The heck do I have plugged in? That's oh. It's funny. The reason there's 5 volts reading on here, it's roughly we're running at about 3 watts, is this camera. This camera is running off of this charger. But I want to change this because the top of this is it's just a plastic box, right? And um, excuse me. What I'd rather have is on the top is have a USB-C charging block like this, but on the top is a wireless charging pad. So I can just set my phone down and have it charging while I'm doing work and stuff because it's such a pain to charge my phone all the time. Why? And this is unusually dark, but that's okay. Probably just need to turn the dial somewhere. There we go. Um, I have my illuminated keyboard, which doesn't look illuminated here, uh, because I got all these lights, and then my let's see. Just show you a couple other things. Some of you may have not have seen my, you know, I have my HDMI switch box here, which is awesome, and then my loop deck, which lets me um, quickly change screens, right, to whatever when I need to. Okay, the only thing I want for the OM5 Mark II is that 5-second high-res shot. Ooh, yeah, that's right, the faster processing. I use it so much on my OM5 that 15 seconds can be forever sometimes. Interesting. So, yeah, it's about 10 or 15 seconds to do high-res shot on the OM1. I haven't heard of a 5-second high-res. Or maybe it is 5 seconds in the OM1. I don't use it that often, time to time, but not often enough that I remember. Ah, the D90 is very rough condition. It was a great camera, but it had a rough life. Oh, the S2 Pro. That was another sort of Nikon hybrid, right, by Fuji. It used the Nikon F mount, but it was basically Fujifilm inside, right? And then I've had trouble with the SanDisk cards. I'll never buy another. Samsung is what I rely on these days. Yeah, I love Samsung cards, the UHS-1 cards. I haven't seen UHS-2 cards from Samsung, but there's always right now there's such a good deal on the Samsung UHS-1 cards. The Samsung Pro 256 gig card with the USB-C card reader is $23 right now. It's just shocking. Um, because if you this is my deals page. I do on Tuesdays I do my live streams for shopping. Look at this. That's a deal. $23 you get the card and the reader. So if you want a UHS-1 card, that's the one to get. And I'm gonna do another shameless plug here. And this is my Amazon affiliate link. I'll earn a commission. So like 50 cents, something like that on if you buy one, but any support is greatly appreciated. But there's the Samsung card to the 256. Just buy one. I bought one. And then one other thing I'll mention, since we're on the topic, is that it's rated for 130 write speed, 180, which sounds very familiar to the V60 card, but in practice, it doesn't write that fast in the camera because it has that single row of pins. But when I put it in my computer, in the card reader, it does achieve those numbers. I got 130 megabits write speed and 160 megabits read speed. So I did get pretty close to what they're claiming there. And so those numbers are accurate for that card, but when you put them in your camera, because it just has that single row of pins and because the way our cameras, because there's a whole daisy chain of things that happen before it writes to your SD card. So you don't get, it takes 45 seconds to flush a buffer, 90 images with the UHS-1 card. Okay. Oh yeah, this water. Okay, so doctor's orders. I need to drink 2 of these in the morning, 2 after lunch, and 2 for dinner. So I get 3 liters a day. Um, anyway, so yeah, I have to drink a lot, which I mean, he says 2 to 3 liters a day, so I try to get closer to 3 than 2, but that requires a lot of trips. Oh, I have an awesome. Well, I don't drink espresso, but I have an awesome coffee maker. Makes perfect coffee. Oh, I love the keyboard. How much was it? That it was like $100. Um, I let me give you a closer look. So it's USB-C. Oh, you can see it's illuminated here, but not USB-C, but it's a USB-A keyboard, and that's how you get the LED lighting and the wood finish, and it has a clicky sound to it. Probably can't hear that, but because of the noise canceling and stuff that goes on with our mics. Yeah, this keyboard is awesome. The only thing I think I need to do is get a keyboard rest, wrist rest, that I can put in front of it, because when I'm typing, my wrist set down, and I don't type as much as I used to, so I haven't bought one yet. But if I was an avid typer, I would definitely need a keyboard rest because a lot of the modern keyboards, they have keyboard rest built in, and this one does not. But yeah, it was like $100. This is Azio Retro Classic. I don't even know if it's still available because I bought this years ago. It was actually a gift. I bought this as a gift to my dad many years ago. Um, oh, they have them in wireless now too. I don't see the exact same one. I'm just looking here. I mean, if you want wireless, they want a fortune. Let's see. Let's see if they give you some keyboard options. I don't see the exact same one. There's black. Black is kind of nice. That's got more of a typewriter feel to it. But yeah, I paid $115 for it many years ago. That's not wood. Oh, that's cool. That looks like a typewriter, doesn't it? I don't know if I like this illumination underneath though, these squares, but it's got that handle, which is kind of cool. And it's a Bluetooth, but how does it get, it must use batteries or something to power the LED lighting. Oh, I see. People put their iPad on there. Anyhow, um, it's made by Azio. I guess that's a good place to start if you want to start looking for a keyboard like this. And like I said, this keyboard is probably 6 or 7 years old because my dad passed away about 5 years ago, and I bought this for his birthday. Because the problem he was having, which I'm having now myself, was he couldn't see the letters on the keyboard, and the keys were too close together. So this one spaces them out nicely, and the key, the letters are nice and large. So it's an old man keyboard, basically, which I am now. And that setup looks better than the start. It's probably inspired by that unconsciously, right? Because, oh, you got to see my laptop, man. My laptop is cool too. Oops, wrong button. Uh, like with this, I got this like raindrop effect on the keyboard. I never use this keyboard, but uh, yeah, this is cool. So everything in my old man glasses. Um, but yeah, let me get this up. There's my EM5 Mark III with a 17 millimeter f1.8 lens. And this is my color calibration for my monitor. So I always have a calibrated monitor when I'm doing my editing. Of course, this is my backup monitor. It's a double screen, so I can, double wide, like like whatchamacallit. It's a double wide, right? Like trailers. And then uh and then I use my laptop screen as well. So I have three screens here that I have access to. And then, over here is my dry cabinet and cameras and my hat. Anyway, uh and then I have one other thing you guys probably haven't seen in a while is I have a CD reader. I haven't had to use this all dusty now. I haven't had to use this in a while. But every now and then, I'll get an old camera that comes with a CD and I need a reader for it, right? Let me get this straight. It bothers me. Okay. Uh, and then I've got the Samsung. So how's your experience with the Samsung? I mean, mine has been excellent. I have no complaints about Samsung at all. And John Follows is here. Good to see you. No rain here, just cloud, half a mile visibility. Don't need a black mist filter. Yeah, it's cloudy today here, actually. Um, and today's temp is -1 C with a wind chill of -5. Yeah, that's not too bad though for where you are, because I think you can get down to -20 easily. And Servant, damn, I want that keyboard for my Samsung tablet. Yeah, just buy it. Just buy it. I'm telling you. Let me let me give you my affiliate link for that. There you go. Any support is greatly appreciated. I got memberships, I got donations, I got my affiliate links. Affiliate links is probably the best way because then you don't have to put out anything more than what you already are, right? And then my memberships are 99 cents, which is totally just to support the work that I do here because I do help a lot of people, both online and offline. So any little bit I get, like yesterday I went out, I set up, I hosted a photo meet and we did fireworks. So I should show you guys some pictures that I took yesterday. But I spend most of my time helping other people and not really getting a lot of photography done myself at these photo meets. So I set up one yesterday we do fireworks, we did fireworks show and we did a Christmas tree. I know Christmas, right? Christmas tree show. And that turned out pretty awesome. And I'll talk about that too. Andrew's like, what's a CD? And Marco's here. Hey, Marco. God, I got to email you, man. We need to get together and talk about computers. Maybe, how about next week? Next week is, yeah, next Sunday, or maybe any day this week. Just email me and let me know when you're available, and we'll set up a stream and do laptops. Because I want you to vet my page. I got a page now. I'm gonna give this to you now. So I put together a list of laptops. There's a link to my deals page on laptops that I feel are great uh, budget choices for photographers to do photo editing. And because people are always asking me, I'm sure you get just as many questions on your channel. Rocco has a great uh, uh, computer channel, right? Hot Hardware, where they talk about the latest gear and technology, all computer related, maybe sometimes cell phones and stuff too. But uh, so definitely check out Hot Hardware for the latest news and tech. But you would be the one to come onto the channel with me and talk about, entry level. We did one a year ago, I believe. And every year things change and sometimes I forget. But I tried to vet some decent laptops that were around $1,000 to $1,200. If you spend any less than that, it's not worth it, I don't think. Unless there's some special deal for Black Friday. So I want to try and set up a baseline for people to know what they need to look for in a laptop to do their photo editing effectively so they can get a good deal on Black Friday, right? Because there's going to be a lot of Black Friday deals coming, and it's best if we educate people what to look for, because a lot of us, a lot of people just don't know, like my friend. Oh my God, her laptop takes her 15 minutes, because of all the denoising algorithms and AI that are in our software now. It takes her 15 minutes to denoise a single image. It takes like 15 seconds on my computer, you know, or less. So, but you don't need to spend, $2,500. You could spend half or less than half that to get virtually the same performance for photo editing. Now, if you want to talk about video editing, then you need to start spending some money, and that's why I spent the money is for the video editing side. But for photo editing, you can probably get 90% there for half the money. Um, but always good to see you, Marco, regardless. um, let's see. Said I did a link for it, but it's not working. Um, I mean, you tried to post a link, or the link that I posted didn't work? Okay. Well, either way, you've seen what, if the affiliate link doesn't work, it's okay. Just search for it and buy it on your own without it. But I appreciate it. Uh, Darkeyes, how many places do you have around you to shoot wildlife? I'm lucky to be on the edge of the city, and 20-minute drive gets to Riverways Park. Oh, no. Really, I only have one place that's about 20 minutes from me with no traffic. Problem is, there's traffic all the freaking time. So it takes like 45 minutes to an hour to get there. Like if I want to get there before sunrise, the way the timing is now, it's right in the middle of rush hour. Same thing with sunset, right? It's right in the middle of rush hour. If you go anytime during the day, there's nothing there. It's the Dead Sea. But Huntley Meadows Park is pretty reliable, mornings and evenings, mostly mornings. But I can't get there because of freaking traffic. It's really, unless I want to get there like an hour and a half before it gets light and wait around. And then I might as well just drive in traffic. Anyway, um, aside from that, it's 2 to 3 hours to get anywhere of consequence that has decent birding and wildlife. Conowingo Dam is a couple hours away. Bombay Hook Park, couple hours. I mean, 100 miles plus in any direction will get me to a nice place. But locally to me, really, it's only Huntley Meadows, and it's only 15 miles from my house. And like I said, it's like 20 minutes without traffic, but I can, except on even on the weekend. Well, the weekends are okay, but usually I got other things planned, right? With the photo club. Uh, but during the week, it's a pain in the you know what for me to get there during the week. Okay. Oh, you tried for that keyboard. It's odd. Let me try one more time. There's the link to that keyboard, or one of them. Okay, and the lockdowns, yeah, I know. And you would think with so many people telecommuting now and not driving, that traffic would be lighter, but it's not. It's not. I came home, I drove, I got to a photo shoot on Thursday. I think it was Thursday. It took me about an hour to get there because it was 52 miles from my house. And took me an hour. So that's pretty much straight driving, no problem. Took me 2 hours to get back. You know what time it was? It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, like well before what used to be considered rush hour. But as it is now, I left the site at a little bit before 3 o'clock. I didn't get home until almost 5 o'clock because uh, because of traffic. And there was no accidents or anything like that. It was just frickin' traffic. And oh my God, it's so irritating to get places. Um, if I paid a toll, I would have saved like 5 minutes. If I wanted to take the toll roads and come down, I would have saved like 5 minutes. But I ain't spending $15 in tolls to save 5 minutes. Ah, Um, the Z52 will be webcam ready. The only problem I have with USB-C is a lot of cameras, they only do 720p through the USB-C port. If they do 1080p and the quality is as good as going through the HDMI port, then I'm fine with it. But I don't know about modern cameras. But I always use HDMI uh, to for the better quality, even though it's probably not obvious because most of my streams the quality is not great anyway. But it would be worse if I used the USB-C ports on any of my devices that are capable of that. You you can see USB-C versus HDMI. If you do a YouTube search, you'll see people that do comparisons, and the HDMI is much cleaner. And did I see David Crooks here? Oh, hey David, how are you? How was your trip yesterday? David, the reason I hosted the photo meet yesterday is because David was hosting one. Uh, I forget where it is, in Georgia. Anyway, it was like 10-hour drive for me. I ain't doing that. Take a picture of some old rundown cars. I mean, I'm sure it was great and a lot of fun, but I have a certain limitations because I have Ellie. Andrew says, I have an i5 laptop with a 2060 RTX and it's great performance for video editing. Lightroom, however, is unusable. I've abandoned Adobe now. Too expensive for yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, basically, if you have any dedicated NVIDIA card, the RTX or the GTX series is the older one, but if you have the newer RTX series, it's a little more advanced for AI type processing. But like I said, that'll get you 90% there. The CPU is almost irrelevant, but it does explain why your Lightroom experience was so bad. The CPU is very important for Lightroom because a lot of the processes that Lightroom uses are single thread, single core, single thread. And the i5 is not the most powerful CPU anymore, right? And even if you can get into multi-threading tasks with Lightroom, it doesn't have that many threads to go around. So, uh, yeah, come on down, Darko. It's actually, uh, I should clarify, I just help organize some of the events, but it's actually David Crooks's photo club, and he did all of the legwork, over the years to bring in members and build a community um, and created a great place for like-minded people to get together. I'm just sort of tagging along and help them out as much as I can time to time. I'll do a class every now and then, and I do all the classes for free. And uh, and I'll host events when he needs to go somewhere or can't make it because of, other obligations. So it's a great relationship I have with David with the photo club. But he did all the hard work initially, and it's a lot of work to run a photo club. The little bit that I do on top of that is nothing compared to the work that he's done. Um, let me I'm gonna put a link to the photo club. I might host something this weekend, but I think I have a different obligation. I won't be able to host anything this weekend. But there's a link to the photo club that I'm in. Yeah, it was fun. 34 acres of junkyard and was doing light painting until 11 p.m. Wow. Wow. Yeah, we were wondering if you were on your way back or if you were still doing light painting when we were at the event yesterday. Uh, I used to fly. There's a fault at Lightroom. It gets slower, longer. Lightroom is used, reboot. It's okay for 10 minutes. Oh, interesting. So they're having some sort of memory leak or something. That's typically why software gets slow is they start clogging up the cache and the memory and everything, and then you have to do a reboot to flush everything out. I don't use Lightroom very often. I only use it for my photo jobs because I have to use Photoshop, and the workflow between Lightroom and Photoshop is seamless. Versus I use DxO for everything else, my photo editing, my photography, and it's actually my preprocessor before I even use Lightroom. But once I get them into Lightroom after pre-processing with the noise reduction and optical corrections and stuff, that's when I take them into Lightroom and do the other workflow things, layering and HDR and exposure blending. I have to do a lot of stuff. I'll have to show you some pictures from my last shoot. Okay, Photoshop runs just fine. Yes, the cataloging. So another problem might be is you don't have, you need to be using an SSD card, SSD hard drive instead of like the old mechanical style. That helps a little bit. Not a whole lot, but it helps a little bit. Um, Wish I had a polar bear in my driveway. I mean, I wouldn't leave the house for 3 days. Yeah, it would be cool. John Yutze is here. We'll probably buy a new laptop in the next 2 weeks. Would look forward to a laptop buying guide stream with Marco last Christmas before Win 10 expires. Ah, yeah, you need to upgrade their Windows, not because of any performance or features so much, but because of all the security updates that you have to keep up with these days. Oh, they have the keyboard. Cool. It's Elwood for $200. They have 6 remaining. Cool. It says, I'm hanging in there for a brand of mini PCs reduced for Black Friday. They can finally get a copy of Affinity and start editing. Nice. Those mini PCs are interesting. I'm all about laptops because I can use the extra screen. Uh, but if you're just going to sit there with one one CPU and one screen, and the portability, all the things that go with a laptop, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so yeah, and yeah, Marco just gave his email address. Let me. So Marco is really good about answering questions and helping you with your uh, questions and buying decisions when it comes to really anything, but more specifically the PC world. And he can also build the systems, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he'll build you a system and ship it out to you at much lower price than you could ever get in the store. I guarantee you. David actually bought a PC from Marco for like really a substantial discount. And Marco's the most generous guy I've met. He's given me so much stuff. You know, he gave me this lens. He got me a base plate for my OM1. I mean, I'm really grateful to all the support Marco's given me over the years. I wish I could do the same in return. Best I can do is just try to help the community in general. I try to give back. Um, and Tim says, I shoot JPEGs 99% no RAW. I use OM Workspace. Should I buy DxO? No. No, not if you shoot mostly JPEGs. If you're thinking about doing RAW editing, uh, DxO makes a lot of sense. But DxO is really good if you're really into heavily editing your photos. And that's where you start to get the bang for the buck. But if you're bringing your photos in JPEG, that means you're probably, you're getting the exposure, composition, and lighting and everything that you want pretty much in camera, and you just need to do a few tweaks. OM Workspace is great for that. And raw processing is not half bad either with OM Workspace. The only thing OM Workspace really lacks is doing local adjustments. And this is what I mean by heavily editing. Like, it's very difficult to bring up the shadows in a specific spot of the image instead of, if you bring up the shadows, you bring up the shadows globally across the entire frame. And I'm talking about raw editing. This is where OM Workspace falls apart, is you can't do any local editing or adjustments. DxO is really good. The workflow, for me anyway, is really good for doing local adjustments. It's to the point that sometimes I don't even do global adjustments because I get the exposure that I want in camera 99% of the time. And then I just have to do some local adjustments to tweak the overall scene, and I'm done. And DxO is better at that for me in workflow than anything else out there. The other thing DxO is really known for is the denoising and optical corrections and perspective corrections. Second to none, better than Lightroom in every way. Um, so for raw editing, single images, it's amazing. And they've added some new features in DxO8 that I think will be worth the upgrade when there's a Black Friday sale. They have one every year. It hasn't started yet, but I know it will. Uh, that's the time to upgrade. If you're a heavy user, if you're not a heavy user in editing, just DxO7 is fine. You don't need to get the version 8. But if you're editing every day or almost every day and enjoy editing, DxO8 is definitely worth the upgrade. Yeah, there's hardly no latitude in JPEG editing overall. Yeah, particularly the colors. Colors are hard to push and pull. Uh, Shadows, you can push a little bit. Highlights are gone. They're hard to pull back. It's 8-bit JPEG. But what I usually end up doing is, well, let me rephrase that. If I could only shoot JPEG, if I was stuck with JPEG for some reason, I would probably overexpose a little bit. Highlights be damned. Because if you underexpose it and try to bring the shadows up, it's pretty rough. If you overexpose it and clip your highlights, it's okay. Highlights are usually not that important in the image anyway. Um, but then you can darken the image and save your shadows. So for me, I'm more shadow recovery orientated typically in my images because I want to save the highlights in my RAWs. But for JPEG, I'd probably just let the highlights clip and go with uh, bringing the shadows down and making them darker rather than trying to make them brighter. And I think you'll get a much nicer, cleaner edit out of a JPEG if you overexpose and clip your highlights. It's okay. If you don't want to clip your highlights, you want to save your highlights, then you have to be very careful with your shadows because recovering those, uh, I guess you could go either way, right? Just you either pick your highlights or pick your shadows when you shoot for a JPEG. uh, for me, it would probably be mostly shooting for the shadow areas. I wish I could connect with the folks at DxO to develop a benchmark for testing CPUs and GPUs. Yeah, I don't know if they're that interested, but I'll tell you what though. I did a benchmark between Lightroom's noise reduction and DxO. Let's assume they denoise equally. They don't, but let's just assume they do. I denoised 50 images. I did like 3 things. I changed the white balance, I applied denoising, and what was the other thing I did? I think it was just optical correction. So I did these 3 things, and I said, okay, export 50 images from Lightroom with those 3 things. export 50 images from DxO with those three things. And in Lightroom, it took 3 minutes to do that, to export 50 images on my computer. I got a really good computer. So in DxO, it took 1 minute and 20 seconds, so less than half the time to do the same thing and get better results, in my opinion, than Lightroom. Uh, for a single image, it took 15 seconds. For DxO, it took 22 seconds for Lightroom. But this is the Achilles heels of Lightroom. The reason, so you would think that would translate to like 2 minutes instead of 3 minutes overall. But the Achilles heel of Lightroom is the cataloging system. And as it's exporting and updating, it also has to update the catalog, and that's why there's this disparity. I know it's hard to understand what I'm saying without drawing a graph and all of that, but uh, ultimately DxO is more efficient and gives better results than Lightroom when it comes to denoising, optical corrections, and minor adjustments. Mark says, I doubt they'd have interest, but it's really good to get the word out on a piece of software that appears in CPU and GPU reviews across all tech publications. I know. That's a really valid point. I send them feedback time to time. I mean, okay, so this year I've sent like 2 emails to them with very specific suggestions, right? Never heard back. Um, oh, my color blindness is the reason I shoot JPEG. Okay, that makes sense. DxO Photolab 8 is considerably faster in the catalog than 7. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, Photolab 8 has a very minimalistic approach to cataloging the images, uh, but so I never had any problems with my catalog, but that's interesting. And got a new HP Envy. Oh, I was looking at an HP the other day myself, and then I talked myself out of it. Funny how the latest screen tech makes all my pictures look 100% better. I know, right? And System Mature is here. Good to see you. Um, Overcast, low light in London. Yeah, you guys have terrible weather. Okay, so this is a good breaking point. I think Photolab is also a better raw render. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Lightroom is, I mean, we have to pixel peep to really show it, right? But when you look at the images side by side, I think you can see the difference. But to be sure, like in a blind test, I'd probably have a hard time looking at 2 JPEG outputs from these software. But I definitely know that I denoised an image in Lightroom and I denoised one in DxO. Hands down, DxO was better. But Lightroom also introduced some artifacts that DxO did not. Like there's patches of grass in this one picture, and the patch of grass got totally blurred out in Lightroom. One little patch in the grass itself. So you have this beautiful flowing grass field, and then right in the middle of it is like this blurred out section because of the denoising in Lightroom. DxO didn't do that. I had this nice, beautiful, smooth flowing grass through that entire area. So Lightroom still has some work to do I mean, it does a fine job overall, but yeah, if you want to split hairs, DxO is better in my opinion. The 55 to 250 OM lens still exists. I have no idea. I don't know what they're doing over there. And Pucho's here from Web Solutions. Is screen color calibration photo editing software specific or is it useful for all raw photo editors? Thank you for your informative videos. Is specific or use it for all? It is software specific. So the software has to support um, color calibration. So Lightroom supports it with the color checker, which is this thing. I know you guys have seen this. This is, I think Spider or somebody bought it. Anyway, if you search for X-Rite, Lightroom and DxO, you can calibrate your colors with those two pieces of software. If you use something else, I don't know if Luminar or Affinity or Photo AI, if those support calibration or not, but I know those two, so you need to look for that. And basically all that does is make sure your colors are accurate, right? That's all. Oh, hey, David Tellett's here. He's out on a cruise or something. That's awesome. How you doing? Good to see you. We need to get together and be pentaxians for a week, right? When you get back. And color calibration sets the screen and not the software. Well, yeah, you have to color calibrate your screen too, right? Most monitors these days are close enough right out of the box. I mean, for general photo editing, but if you want to be really, really accurate, you have to get X-Rite also sells monitor calibration as well. And then if you get really carried away, you can get calibrations for your printer too. You don't really need to do all that. Uh, I would calibrate. The main thing about your monitor is make sure the brightness is not too bright. Uh, you want to set the monitor brightness to about 120 nits if or 50% on the scale, whatever your monitor is, because most monitors are about 300 nits. So if you set it to 50%, you'll get a little over 100 nits, which is some measurement for light or brightness. Set your monitors to 50% brightness. If you don't have a calibration tool for your monitor, and you'll be fine. Um, and honestly, calibrating your raw images with something like this is also we're splitting hairs. I mean, the difference between a calibrated image and this is so subtle. Uh, I can see the difference because I do it all the time, right? But I don't color calibrate a lot of things. Usually I'll use one of the presets in the software like natural or vivid, whatever, to get the look that I want. And I don't worry about color calibrating. But if I was doing product photography or portrait photography, if I was doing anything professional where colors were critical, and I'll come back to that because I did a real estate shoot the other day. Uh, then I might color calibrate the images. Come to think of it, I should have done that for my photo shoot on Thursday. I need to get it into my workflow because it's not a workflow I do very often. But I do have color profiles that I made for my OM1, my Pen F, and probably another camera, my LX100. I made a color profile because I didn't like the colors coming out of my LX100 specifically. And after I calibrated it to this X-Rite, they were much better, much more pleasing to me. It's all subjective. Some people love the colors out of that camera, but I was not happy. And once I calibrated them, then I was happy again. Because Olympus colors are pretty accurate. It's very, very subtle difference. But the LX100 is a little bit off. Sony is a little bit off, off in a direction that I don't like. Some people like it, okay, but it was kind of off in a direction I didn't like. Olympus, I rarely calibrate uh, or use the calibrations that I set up. Um, and David says he runs screen calibration. Yeah, about the same for me. About the same. And Walter says, oh, hey, Walter, how's it going? Says display calibration is independent of photo software. Don't trust out-of-the-box display calibration. Use 120 candlelights for brightness. Web and 8080. See, that's the thing, Walter, is you need a monitor calibration tool, right, to set that. And like I was saying, if your monitor's 300 nits, 400 nits, if you set it to 50%, you're going to be pretty close. And the reason you want to set your monitor brightness down is primarily for printing, right? If you want your prints to look closer to what you see on the screen. And that's more important than, I think, when you have your monitor too bright, which is like probably 90% of the people out there, their phones, their tablets, their computer monitors, and everybody looks at stuff on their phones and tablets now anyway. Theirs are set way too bright. And if you calibrate, even if you're editing at 120 nits, then you can be sure you're delivering a very consistent result to whoever might be looking at your photos online uh, all the time. And then when you go to print, what you get printed is also going to be very consistent. But um, you can say don't trust the out-of-box display calibration. And that is true if you want to really split hairs. But I can tell you, the older monitors that I have, yeah, it was a big problem. But I bought this new monitor. My laptop has a relatively new screen, and I also have another monitor out of my studio. And I compared calibrated, not calibrated, and there was very, very little difference. So monitors seem to be coming out of the box a little better. Now, a really good website to go to check is a site called Artings. This this website here, Artings, it's ratings just without the A in it. They test calibration in and out of monitors, right? So if we just go to any monitor review, here's an OLED display. Picture quality. So they talk about contrast, blah, blah, blah. So they do pre-calibration, post-calibration, right? Pre-calibration, they were getting 93% of the color gamut for sRGB, 92.6, so really about the same here. White balance deviation, this is pretty substantial. So this monitor looks like it was a little bit warmer or cooler. I don't know. Color temperature average was 66 versus 65. I mean, it's really close. This is a setting. Brightness was 171 out of the box, and they brought it down to 97. So if you really want to find a monitor, this is a very good site to research monitor pre and post calibration. But like you just saw, the difference between pre and post calibration, there's not that much difference, at least with that monitor. I'm sure there's plenty of monitors that are going to be terrible pre calibration, and some are going to be, I mean, the brightness you can see though was at 171 nits, right? So if you cut that in half, if you go down to 50% on the scale in the monitor, it'll probably go back down to about 100 nits because it's not linear, right? The brightness scale on your slider. But yeah, Walter is correct. You can't trust it because it's going to be off. I've never seen a monitor out of the box from that website that was 100% as good as, the post-calibrated. But a lot of monitors are close enough that if you just reduce the brightness of your monitor, that'll probably fix a lot of the other problems that it's having with other colors and sRGB color space and all of that. And most every Mac and Windows system I never used required display calibration. It sets a color mapping profile for the system display driver. This matters. I think you meant I ever used. Yeah, so yeah, it creates an ICC profile, right? That you have to point to. And I mean, we're getting really technical, uh, but I can tell you in practice, I can't see that much difference. Maybe my eyes are terrible. Maybe it's just me, right? Or maybe I'm not as critical. Especially with my color images, I typically, like I said, just use the software. Um, because I never calibrated my monitors. Now, this very old monitor that I have over here to my left, that one is way off compared to my two newer monitors. If I don't calibrate that one, I can see a big difference when I take the picture from point A to point B. That thing is way off. And once it's calibrated, it's pretty good. But yeah, older monitors, definitely you have to calibrate. Newer monitors, the three that I had, I mean, it was like so tiny the difference. My laptop, my new LG monitor, and I have I think it's an Acer. I forget the brand monitor I have in my studio. I just bought it. It's like very little difference. I just reduced the brightness down to 50% and it was 99% there. Okay, in my experience, the displays tend to run a bit cool and calibration corrects it. Yes. Yeah, on the cooler side, that makes sense. On the cooler side. Okay. And stiffness, I need relatively high brightness on my monitors now due to cataracts forming. Yeah. I mean, we all have, maybe that's my problem. Maybe that's why nobody likes my photography because I'm editing them and then with my dying eyes. So they look good to me, but everybody else is like, oh man, what you doing? Speaking of editing, let's look at some photos real quick, and then I want to talk about cameras and lenses again. Let me see. So let me set this up so we can see. Uh, all right, so this was the photo meetup yesterday, and so a lot of people, I don't know where Intrigue went. Eric, he disappeared. Eric's one of my viewers here on the channel, but he's also come to the photo events. Just started. I met him for the first time last week. I don't know. Oops. I don't know where he went. I lost him somewhere on the pier. Anyway, we all went over here and shot fireworks. See if I can remember everybody's name. Okay, Elaine? No. What the hell? Uh, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Diane. Okay, so Diane, Kim, Donna, Marina, Eric, Owen, Lacey, Robert, and Lydia. And then Eric, there was another Eric that just disappeared on me. Um, and okay, so we went to National Harbor. So this was before the fireworks and Christmas tree show. And I brought my Pentax black and white camera and my EM5 Mark II. Uh, it's a little bit of street photography here. And I did some minor editing to these. I underexpose a little bit with the Pentax now, and then bring up the shadows and post. That's really all I've done. This was part of the Christmas tree show. And if you look up here, they got like artificial snow that they're blowing out. That was kind of cool. So there was all this snow all the way around. Uh, I thought this is a huge flag. So I just took a picture of it. But I really love the tones that we get from the monochrome camera. They're really good. And let's see, more snow. This all artificial. This is not my picture. Somebody sent this to me. Uh, I don't know. This was a couple of weeks ago. I was out on a photo club and somebody took a picture of me and then they edited it and sent it to me. Okay, so this was the fireworks show. And this is where I used the M5 Mark II and I just put it on the intervalometer, turned it on and just let it go. And this is one of the images it captured. And the rest of the time I walked around and was helping people. What's kind of funny though is I um I pushed the shutter button and I thought the intervalometer started, but it didn't. And I walked away from the camera before checking. So for about 5 or 10 minutes, I got no pictures of fireworks. And then when I went back to my camera, I was like, crap, there's no pictures here. So I got a little bit in the beginning and a little bit at the end of the fireworks show. But some other people, they got some great shots. This is a photo. So this one was the M5 Mark II. This is a 1 second exposure at ISO 100 f11. I don't know if the EXIF data is there, but this is I took out my Fujifilm to take a picture of Ellie because the Fujifilm has just been sitting on the shelf. So I just said, screw it. I'm going to take a pic. I'm going to try and use this camera today. So I took it out and I took some pictures of Ellie and that's it. But it came out nice. This was the Fujifilm X-H2 with the 33mm f1.4. And I used a flash for fill light. And then in post-processing, I just brightened her eyes up a little bit more. And overall, the exposure a little bit brighter overall. Another picture of Ellie on the Fujifilm. And this was from last week when we went out to Virginia Arboretum to take pictures of the ginkgo tree. So I might have a ginkgo tree picture in here, but obviously these are my Pentax monochrome images. This is a picture from last year from a different point of view of the same fireworks. I was using this to promote the event for yesterday. I used the picture that I took last year, so I posted it here. This is the Pentax monochrome. And for those of you that are wondering why I take so many pictures of my dog, this is why I got into photography, is to take pictures of my dog. Really, that's the primary reason, and that's what I take pictures of the most. More than anything else, I take pictures of. I take pictures of Ellie. This one is taken with my Nikon DF uh, with the 24 to 85 kit, not kit lens, but it's a nice lens, but it's not like an f2.8 or anything. It's a 3.5 to 4.5 variable aperture, but it's a great lens. This is the Pentax monochrome at one of the events I went to. That's just a building that was there. This is the straight out of camera. And then this was kind of an edit. So I just punched up the contrast a little bit. And this was a 6-shot pano. So I had the 33 millimeter lens on my Pentax, and so it equates to a 55 millimeter. And I couldn't get back far enough to get the whole scene that I wanted of this building. So if you look at this image, this is all I could capture was about this in terms of width. So I took 6 shots, left, center, right, bottom left, center, and bottom right, and then I stitched them together in Photoshop. So I do this all the time because a lot of times I'll shoot with a prime lens, and if it's not as wide as I need it to be to capture the scene that I want, I will take multiple images and stitch them together and just make, so that I get effectively a wide angle shot. And as a bonus, I get more megapixels, right? So these are the individual shots, and that's the panel stitched together. So I thought that came out nice. And another picture with LE Pentax monochrome, Pentax monochrome. This is the Pentax mon. These images are on my Flickr account, so you can pixel peep these if you want on Flickr. But this image here, I converted a PenF RAW file. I just did a straight conversion, brought the RAW file in, applied optical corrections, and converted it to monochrome and exported it. I didn't do any processing. Same thing with the Pentax monochrome. I took the raw image and exported it without any processing. And this is what I got. Yeah, this is the Pen F with the 25 millimeter. Oh no, with the kit lens. This is the Pen F with the 12 to 32 Panasonic kit lens. I love this picture. Um, I I I just and this is what I love about Olympus colors. The color that I got out of this scene, I don't know. It didn't get too many likes on Instagram or anything, but I love this picture. It's one of my favorites from that day. Probably my favorite image from that particular day of shooting. There's a color version of the same scene that I did on my Pentax. So if we compare this and maybe this one, um, so on the right is the Pentax monochrome, on the left is the Pen F. This time I used the 25 millimeter f1.4. Wonderful lens. But yeah, I love it. Um, let's see if there's anything else really. Oh, here's David. He was giving a lecture last week at the event talking about AI and photography. Uh, and I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Well, we can compare these two. On the left is the raw image that I converted to black and white, and on the right is the Pentax monochrome. So there's a straight up comparison. Okay. A bunch of other stuff. There's things like this on my Flickr page. This is an interesting picture. This is the Pentax monochrome. This is actual film, the Tri-X 400 that I took with my Hasselblad 500. And this is where you can really see how close the tonality is between the Pentax monochrome camera and actual film. It's really close. And again, you can pixel peep these on your own monitor at home and see what you think and leave a comment and let me know what you think. But everyone seems to think Well, I don't think anybody commented, so I'm not gonna say that. But I think it's really close. So Pentax monochrome on the left and actual Kodak Tri-X 400 film. And Kodak is generally a more contrasty film stock, this Tri-X. So I was a little surprised how close the tonality was. Because I didn't get the impression that the Pentax was that contrasty. But then when I put it side by side, like I can see a little bit here. The Pentax, I can see the a little bit of lighter tone here than over here on the Tri-X. It's a little bit darker. But anyhow, uh, that's what I did this weekend and last weekend, basically, these kinds of images. And so I shot with 4 or 5 different cameras this week, and that's kind of what kind of brought me to what I wanted to talk about today. Um, now that we're almost 2 hours into the stream, I'm finally getting to the topic. But let me pull up my chat window. Unless I accidentally closed it. Oh, no, here it is. Uh, let's see. Yep, David. And I see that you got DxO PureRaw 4 alone software program. Is it a newer as or has it other No, PureRaw 4 is only for denoising and optical corrections. It doesn't do anything else. And Marco says, calibrating the screen display is not photo editing specific. The screen will be calibrated for all yeah. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. Uh, but yeah, that what Marco and what Walter was saying earlier is a little bit more precise than probably the way I articulated it. And oh, Walter's saying the same thing here. Display calibration independent of photo software. Yeah. So I didn't articulate that correctly, I guess. But they are separate. For this, you want the screen to display accurate colors. You don't need, you know, this thing, okay? If you want your software to produce accurate colors, you need to start here, and then uh, your monitor needs to be calibrated as well. But it doesn't matter if you've done this or not, the calibration of the monitor. So that, like I said, there's kind of a workflow from the camera digital raw file to the color space that your software uses to the calibration here to your monitor, and your monitor has a certain color space capability. I mean, we're really, really getting into the weeds. Um, but raw files don't have a specific color space. They're providing with all the color that the camera is capable of producing, including probably beyond what we can see with our own eyes. And then when you bring them into software, software will apply a color calibration to it that is either in the software. So you might tell the software, okay, here's the raw image, display it in sRGB color space. Then your monitor needs to be also set to sRGB or calibrated for sRGB. So you can it's sort of backwards compatible though. If your monitor is calibrated for say P3 or Adobe RGB, it's okay if you show sRGB through your software, but it's better that the software is calibrated to match the monitor. And then it's hard for me to do this off the top of my head, but there's like I said, there's a certain daisy chain there that has to be followed so that everything you're seeing from the camera raw to what you see on your monitor to what you print everything has to be calibrated along the way and have matching color spaces. So, and it can make a big difference actually if there's something broken along the way. So for example, you export your images in Adobe RGB and then people are looking at it on their phone. Most phones and tablets and computers are calibrated for sRGB and the colors are going to look weird to them. So you need to make sure that, anyway, uh, it's important, but it's not that important. Okay. And then camera profiles are specifically the camera fully color managed workflow will improve consistency of output. Yeah, that's only applies to JPEGs though. Like I said, the raw images should not have any um, color space assigned to it. It might, and your software will read that in the EXIF data, but ultimately you can change the raw image color space to anything you want. You know, ProPhoto, Adobe, etc. Okay. Um, the depth of field online is abysmal. I'm not sure what you're referring to. And what's the point of calibrating a monitor unless you're trying to match the printer profile paper? Well, the you know, if you're going even if you're going to share your images online, you want to make sure that you are consistently delivering images uh, I mean, ultimately, you really don't need to calibrate your monitor if you have a more modern monitor. But if you're very critical about color, it's about consistently editing the thing so that if somebody else is looking on a calibrated monitor, it will show the same colors that you see, right? It's more for professional workflow. Most people, their monitors are not calibrated if they're looking at your pictures, and they're going to be off a little bit anyway. So but yeah, if you want consistent colors from your editing process, what you see on the screen, to someone else's screen that's also looking at your images in a critical way, to your prints, like I said, that whole path, that whole daisy chain of things have to be all calibrated and matched, right? They even, and printing takes it another step further because they have calibrations for specific papers. Right? So if you're going to be printing on this type of paper stock, you need to use an ICC profile for the paper stock into the printer rather than the printer's default ICC profile. And monitor calibration sets color mapping in addition to brightness. It helps us see accurate colors. Yeah, for most monitors now, that's true. Um, older monitors, older monitors, sometimes you had to set the brightness manually, right? So you would use you would actually have to adjust the brightness down until the software, calibration software told you, okay, now you're good. Newer monitors, everything is just automatic, right? And been using high-end tablets so long, I can barely use a computer for editing anymore. That's funny. See, your brain gets wired to a certain workflow, right? And then it's hard to change. So in view of a small handful of people looking at my social media photos and videos posts, I do not worry too much about my monitors in the end. How good are the screens are people? Yeah, like I was saying earlier, most people's screens and monitors are too bright and not calibrated correctly. Nice fireworks. I didn't go to any this year. Oh, I'm very lucky that, the National Harbor here does them November, December, New Year's, 4th of July. So I have so many opportunities to go see fireworks. Walter says, "Love your new mono camera." Oh, thank you, Walter. I appreciate that. Walter is a very accomplished photographer himself, so that means a lot to me. Thank you. Uh, didn't know they did that at the National Harbor this weekend. Yeah, yesterday was the first day. I assume it's at the Gaylord Resort. Yep. They just started last night. And Robert's here. Good to see you, Robert. Robert was at the event yesterday with his Pen F and OM1, I believe. And great colors. Hopefully you're referring to the same image that I really liked, my one with the ginkgo trees. That park scene with the trees is probably not a good image for smaller Instagram display. Yeah, yeah, that's true. And the Pentax Mono gives you really crisp, clear images. I like them. Yeah. And that there's a thing. There's definitely a trend, I think, right now to having hyper realistic photography where things are very crisp, accurate, and um and not trying to do HDR or, well, you might have to do HDR, but not trying to make it look surrealistic. You're trying to be more realistic, right? And better than color conversions to mono. I agree. It's very subtle. It's a very niche thing, but I really love my Pentax mono. You should get one, Walter. It's fun. Uh, the Pentax may give you more dynamic range than the Tri-X film. Possibly, I don't know. I would, I guarantee some film people would challenge us on that one. But yeah, film is really film. You can recover highlights to no end. If I overexposed an image one time by probably 10 stops, like when you looked at the film um, at the negative, it was like it was just white. I mean, not white, but it was, you couldn't see anything on the negative. And I, basically, it was so overexposed. So I guess the negative would have been black. But when I converted it and brought it into my photo editing software, the image was almost completely white, and you saw some very fine hints of gray here and there. And I pulled that slider down, -5 stops, and I started seeing all man, that thing came back like you would not believe. It was shocking. I doubt I can find that image now, but let me look. I remember it was over at the marina. I'm not gonna find it. Maybe it's maybe, yeah, this could be it here. Um, dang it. Like that one's pretty, well, no, yeah, that's pretty overexposed. So what film was this? Was Kodak Tri-X 400. None of, well, this might, well, that's kind of a gray sky. I don't I don't know if this would give a good example. That gives you some idea of how much I can pull it, but not really. There was one image that was just totally blown out. I could not believe. I don't see it. Dang it. I just I can't find it. How about this? No. Is it this one? Well, anyway, I'm looking for that photo. Because if we look at this one, the skies are pretty bright. But yeah, I underexposed this. But if I wanted to bring back the detail in the cloud, this is not a good example. I just can't find it now. This is HP Pen 400. No. Shadow recovery is a bit of an issue. But highlight recovery, it just seems like I can overexpose film and not worry about the highlights. Sometimes by like 5 stops, and the highlights will be there. I can recover all the details. Cambridge Color has a great color management workflow. Okay, good to know. Custom camera profile can replace the photo editing software's camera profile. Yes, I do that. So if we look at, I do that for my LX100, right? So if we go to, see if I have some LX100. Um, here's an LX100 set. Whoops. I missed the summer already. But yeah, here's the straight out. Is this the JPEG? This is the JPEG. Let's find a raw image. One that's exposed properly. So let me see. I have these profiles made. If you look over here, these are profiles that I set up for individual cameras. So my PenF and natural light with different lenses. So I set up a profile for different lenses in different kinds of light to try to get the most accurate color possible. So you can see I got PenF and natural light with a 12 to 40 Pro, PenF and natural light with the 25 millimeter f1.4 Leica, PenF and natural light with the 14 to 42 kit lens, PenF and OM1 and natural light with the 7 to 14 Lumix with the Leica, natural light for the TG5. Here's one at LX100 in natural light but cloudy. So, like I said, it's hard to see. But let me go back here. I'm going to change this back to generic. That's the generic rendering that DxO is made for the LX100. And what it's trying to do is reproduce the colors from the JPEG files of the LX100. Versus, if I go to my custom profile, you can see there's a little bit of difference, right? From that to this. And we'll go back. Let me just create a duplicate copy. So this one I have set to the cloudy. This one I'll set to generic. Set that as a reference. So on the left here is the DxO LX100 color profile. On the right is my custom profile that I made using my color card. And you can see there's pretty substantial difference here, right? I mean, the greens definitely are much richer. It's not a great image to do this on, but the greens are definitely much richer here, right? Um, let's see how it handles. Do I have anything else besides green? How about this yellow and white? So create these images reference, create a virtual copy. And this one, okay, so this is the generic rendering. And then this one I'll apply my custom profile. LX100 cloudy. So here it's really hard to tell the difference. I really can't see any difference between the two. It's not as obvious as it was in the other image, right? Let me double check that I got the profiles right. Profile. It's very, very subtle. Anywho, so in reference to what Walter was saying, right? Custom camera profile can replace the photo editing camera's profile. So I do that. And I do it per camera, per lens, per lighting conditions. And I also do it via DP Review, right? Because if you go to DP Review's website, you know, they have the, where is it? They have their studio scene. And in the studio scene, let's say let's say you have a Fujifilm X-T100. They have a color chart right here. So I've downloaded the images from DP Review site. So if you don't want to spend, $100, this is on sale now for $89. It's normally $120. It's on my deal page. But if you don't want to spend $120, you can download the image for your camera from the DP Review site. Select ISO 100 RAW. Create your own color profile using their image. And you don't have to buy this. And I tried to compare my own personal calibration versus just doing it that way with DP Review's image. And I couldn't see any difference. Again, I got dying eyes, so it's hard. It may not be obvious to me, but it might be obvious to you that there's something off there. But I've done it that way as well, for just to compare and see. It's a purely academic exercise. But we're assuming we have to make a lot of assumptions. They're using a different lens, right? So that can affect the color profile because lenses have different rendering of color sometimes. And you don't know exactly what kind of lighting. You can assume they're using very high quality lighting for those images. But they are not testing for color, are they? They are testing for resolution and noise performance, dynamic range. They're testing sort of more the camera sensor capabilities than they are testing for color. So you have to kind of take that into account, that you have to make some assumptions when you use an image from them. There's nothing like doing it yourself and having your own color card. But if you don't want to, if you want to try it, it's pretty close using their images. Okay, Lightroom works in the Pro Photo. Yeah, that's true. So when you bring in a raw image, unless the color profiles, I think the color profile is embedded though as sRGB, whatever you set in your camera. So, but the working, yeah, photo editing software has a couple of different working spaces, right? You can work in the color profile space that you choose, or you can work in the color profile space that's embedded into the image. In many cases, sRGB is embedded in both the RAW and the JPEG. And Zoltan is here, and the great Vanzini. Good to see you guys. Good morning. Going to the photo, going to photo the Big Vets Day parade tomorrow. Oh, nice. Oh, a D7200. Wow, that's exciting. It's always fun to go out with a new camera. Um, Somewhat off topic, but keen to see what new computers you find great deals on around Black Friday. Suggest 32 meg, 4060, and 1 TB. Good middle ground, not the best, but yeah, that's all you need. Um, Processor is less important. The only thing I would caution you from is don't buy any processors that have the letter U next to it, the Intel processors. If they have a letter U in there, I would avoid it. The U just means ultra low power. So it uses it, the battery will last longer, but you lose processing power. And most laptops that have a U processor in it don't have a 4060 in them. So it's if you buy a laptop with a 4060, you're pretty safe, but double check. Not always. Because if they have an ultra low processor, ultra low power processor, a U rating on the Intel processor, it's likely that the GPU, even though it's a 4060, is also running at a lower power setting. And you're never going to get maximum performance out of the system. So try to avoid that letter U on the Intel processor, and anything that goes with it is also going to have a higher power rating. And that ultimately is going to give you much better performance. And Paul says, "Hi, Rob. Down in Mexico for a while. I kind of miss film grain. So what packages on DxO do you recommend to get? I think the Elite is missing some correction capabilities. Maybe, yeah, it doesn't have film pack. You have to buy it separate. Uh, I have to look into that. I don't know if DxO comes with any grain profiles by default, because they gave me film pack, you know. I think I bought film pack some years ago, and then they've been giving it to me ever since, right? But I'm not sure. Definitely film pack's not included. And Paul says, I want to switch out of Adobe Lightroom and leverage the Black Friday pricing so we can expect further discounts closer. Yes, definitely. Every year. They would be crazy not to have a Black Friday sale. They will have it, don't worry. You missed the summer. Come down to Hazleton for a month. Oh, I know. And then Marcus says, making a camera-specific color profile would be a great tutorial video. Oh, it's not hard. That's not a bad idea. I second that, Marco. Um, Adobe products have working color space and require soft proofing. Capture One by comparison is always soft proofing based on the export settings. Yeah. Yeah, DxO is the same way. You can set it for soft proofing, or you can set it for the working color space. And the reason you would use two different ones is you can see more colors while you're editing if you're working in a wider color gamut. But if you want to see the colors, especially if you're delivering prints online and you want to see what colors are available to you, if you want to see the colors exactly the same way that somebody you're giving it to online is going to see it, then you work in a soft proofing environment. And that's why DxO, I think Capture One defaults to that, because 99% of us just display our photos online. So why not edit using and seeing the same colors everyone else would see? But the working color space is really good for if there's a certain color that's not visible and you're using a wider color space, you can work with that color and bring it into the visible work um, destination color space like sRGB. So for example, if I'm soft proofing in sRGB color space and I don't see the color red, I'm just that's not going to happen in real life. But if I don't see the color red, then I'm not going to know I can edit that. But if I switch over to say Photo color space, I'll see the red on my screen and I can work with that and then soft proof it to make sure that it shows in the sRGB color space as well. We'll call it a shade of red. Red is one of the strongest colors, so that's not a good example, but there are some shades of different colors that you may not see in an sRGB soft proofing color space that you could edit if you were working in a different color space and bring it into the sRGB color space. Yeah. My God, it's exhausting talking about color space and colors because you know, it can get it can get messy. Because I can't tell you how many times I guarantee every photographer that's been photo editing for any length of time will tell you they have messed up the workflow or that daisy chain of color space and the final image, they couldn't figure out why the color was off. Oh, cool. Hey, Shri, how are you? Good to see you. Didn't see you yesterday at the fireworks. And your comment on eyes is spot on. I had a cataract surgery and color difference was quite astonishing. Waiting for a week and could see the difference. Wow. Yeah, like I said, could be my dying eyes. I've never had my color checked, I don't think. I've never checked for color blindness or anything. I might have a bad case of it. Who knows? And never knew it. Wow. I never got to my topic about cameras. Intel has major firmware issues on some of their new CPUs. Marco would know the details, I'm sure. Oh, interesting. I gotta go back and change the thumbnail on this and say we're talking about color spaces instead of cameras and lenses. The reason I wanted to talk about cameras and lenses because I shot with a lot of different cameras this week. I don't normally do that. Normally I have one or the other. But I shot my OM1, I shot my Pentax, I shot my Fujifilm, I shot my Nikon, and also shot my EM5 Mark II. And it got me thinking about why why do I buy all these different cameras? Because ultimately, and you see this, you've been seeing this a lot, right? When you watch videos online about the camera doesn't matter, the gear doesn't matter, it's not going to improve your photography, right? All of that. And I don't disagree with that at all, right? Photography is a whole different subject than cameras and gear. Photography really, you can talk about the two totally separately, but you can't take pictures and do photography without the camera, right? But anyhow, and I looked at my camera choices, and like I was saying earlier, before when I was really getting known systems and stuff, or I mean after the well during that time, I was buying whatever camera came out by Olympus and OM system, and I'm skipping generations now because I just don't. I'm looking for something new and unique and interesting, right? So my Pentax here, I got this because this is very unique. It's monochrome only. And I can see the difference. It's subtle. It's subtle. You know, in a blind test, I can probably tell now, but initially it would have been hard for me to see the difference between this and just converting a raw image to black and white. The Nikon DF, right? This is one of the early retro versions of their D600 with a D4 sensor. You know, that kind of, anyway, if you watch videos on this, you know what I'm talking about. But this is a very unique camera. It has an amazing sensor in it. And this lens is perfect for it. This is the 24 to 85 VR, f3.5 to 4.5. If you get a Nikon camera, you got to get, you know, DSLR, you got to get this lens. This lens is amazing. But yeah, this, just the body alone, and this is probably why I'm not gassing for the Nikon ZF or ZFC. I have this. The images that this camera produces and the, you know, the look and feel and the work, this is very, very different than this very modern Pentax camera, right? And then, oh, see if I can get this without dropping anything. Drop my hat. Fujifilm X-H2. Very, this is the flash I used when I took that picture of Ellie. Very, very different experience. Beautiful top plate LCD, X-Trans sensor, very unique to Fuji. Very different camera than everything else I own, right? Obviously. So I'm not buying cameras. Well, I'll come back to that. And then, of course, the Sony, right? A7R5. I know I've mentioned it many times, you know, I regret buying this camera, and that's still true. I'm not really a big fan of this camera, but it's very unique. 60 megapixels. This is my high-res monster. And again, very different user experience with the controls and the menus and all of that. Okay, my OM1. I got my 75 to 300. You got to get this lens. It's 350 bucks right now. If you have any Olympus camera or OM system camera, 75 to 300, just buy it. 350 bucks using my affiliate links. Okay. This is an amazing camera. This camera is one of the exceptions to all the other cameras I bought. Okay? And I'll come back to that. Hold that thought, as three blind men and a three blind men and an elephant would say. Hold that thought. And then every camera up here on this shelf, my Pen F, my EM5 Mark II, my LX100, okay? These are all very, very different cameras. And I did not buy a single one. Well, hold that thought, three blind men and a mouse, right? Except for this one, I didn't buy any of them to improve my photography or my image quality that I get. Okay, I didn't do that for any. I bought all of these different cameras because they all offer a very different look and feel and user experience. And they deliver different kinds of images. Now with editing, you can certainly get everything to look the same. But when I take a picture straight out of camera raw or JPEG, none of these cameras look the same. Certainly not the monochrome. That definitely is always monochrome. That's always going to look different. But all of these cameras give very different outlook, whether it's their color science, whether it's their lenses, whether it's holding it in my hand and using it and taking pictures with it. Everything is different. My LX100 is very different than my Pen F. You know, my Pen F is very different than my EM5 Mark II, which is different than my OM1, which is different than any of these. So my point is, and this goes back to tying back to what I was saying about Jimmy's recent video about they're not making cameras for photographers. This is where I kind of disagree or don't feel as strongly as. I agree with the points that he made, but I don't feel quite as strongly because all of these cameras are wonderful cameras and offer very different experience as a photographer. So I feel like they are making cameras for photographers. They have all these other bells and whistles, right? But ultimately, I'm not buying cameras to improve my photography or to improve the image quality. They all deliver excellent image quality. And that's why you always hear people keep saying the gear doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But as an enthusiast, as a hobbyist in photography, I love gear and I love the different things that each of these cameras offer in terms of the kind of images that you get from them. Very, very different. I'll give you a very stark example. Um, just very quickly, going back to this one, and wow, was it that long ago? Wasn't that long ago. It's this and this one. The image on the left was taken with the Nikon DF. The image on the right was taken with the Fujifilm. Look at I mean, the lighting was different. You know, the Nikon I took during the middle of the day, the Fujifilm I took more towards golden hour, and I used flash. But these are very, very different images. Very different look. Uh, I mean, I don't think it would have mattered if I took these at the same time and same time of day, yada yada. And this is what I mean by when I'm using, I can certainly get two images look very similar where I might not be able to tell the difference, and I have done that. But overall, when I'm taking these cameras out, each one is a little bit different and giving me a different experience, certainly giving me a different kind of image. And not one is better than the other. It's all subjective. And I'm just fortunate enough I have enough on my credit card I can buy all these things. I'm still paying for some of these. Oh my God, I'm so pissed at my one credit card anyway, uh, okay, so so the OM1 is the exception. OM1 is the exception to why I bought this camera. The OM1 I bought specifically to improve the images and the quality that I deliver to my clients. Okay? Uh, because this now, and it's not just for the video certainly was a huge improvement over the EM1 Mark III that I had. So that's why it made sense for me to step up to this and not wait for the Mark II. And the image quality that I'm getting from this, I can see a difference between this and the EM1 Mark III. Again, it's very subtle. But ultimately, this camera I bought specifically because I did want better image quality and better video quality. And it delivers for me on that respect. I took this out on my photo shoot. Let me see if I can show you some images from that. Uh, it's in here somewhere. So my work drive, media, clients, Lisa. Here are my deliverables. Um, it's okay. I mean, not my best work, but you know, this is a residential. It's not really my forte. I'm more of a commercial guy. Um, and this house, I love the leaves on the ground, but this backyard was a mess. But I'm not allowed to really change anything. Bathroom, kitchen, your typical real estate shots. And some of these are for informational purposes, right? Like you need to show the stairs and the access to the ups, you want to show access, you want to show the different doors and access to the garage, things like that in your photos. So this is not like any kind of award-winning photo, but it's more informational, right? When you do real estate. Again, here I'm trying to show access to the kitchen and the living room, the windows in the front. So all of these images you do primarily for informational purposes, right? The bathroom, close-ups of the hardware, like that one. And this house had a really nice bathroom. I was pretty impressed with this bathroom. Uh, and that's the exterior of the house. It's behind this freaking tree, so I had to go in at an angle so you could at least see the front door. Because when I went, I think this shot, like when I took it more straight on, it was like, if I moved over to the left, the door would have been completely blocked by this branch. So I didn't like this picture. I delivered this one. Well, I gave the agent both images, more informational type images. But anyhow, uh, these this these are the things that I deliver to my client. But this is the reason I bought this camera, because it definitely made a difference in my workflow in the field when I'm doing these kind of images, because of the custom mode dial on the top. The image quality that I get for both photo and video were all improvements over the M1 Mark III. So this camera is the exception. I did buy this specifically to improve my photography. It also for my birding and wildlife. With the bird detect and animal detect on here, with Ellie, taking pictures of Ellie, taking pictures of birds, way, way better than the M1 Mark III. No comparison. So this camera, and this is what, uh, and this is why I don't feel quite as strongly as what Jimmy was saying in his video, that I think he implied that all of these things are nice, but they have nothing to do with photographers. But for me, it made a huge difference in my photography. I can get Ellie's eye in focus like this with this camera. Uh, I can do birds in flight with my 300 millimeter f4 with this camera. And, you know, when I'm at home, I usually use the 75 to 300 to take pictures of Ellie when I need this focal length. But yeah, but like this Sony has bird detect, animal detect, great autofocus, 60 megapixels, blah, blah, blah. But it's 60 megapixels. It's different. I'm not going to use this to take pictures of Ellie and do birds in flight photography. It's not as fast, the shutter frames per second, all of that. This is not really a sports action camera, although it can be used that way. This is more like my intent was to do some hardcore landscapes. Uh, but for all the other reasons, the workflow, the ergonomics, and it's heavy. Man, when you put it on a scale, it weighs like the same as my OM1, but it just feels like a frickin' brick. So it's probably more up here. It's bothering me than it is in reality. But that's my point is, I think they are making great cameras for photographers. Yeah, there's a lot of bells and whistles, but it made a huge difference for me, those bells and whistles. I love the Live ND. I don't use it very often, but I love it. I love the high-res shot. I don't use it very often, but I love it. You know, I'm as much as a photographer as anyone, more or less, right? I mean, the great people aside, the masters aside, right? Um, But what do you guys think? What did you think? Or what do you think? Uh, are they are they making cameras for photographers or not? I think they are. Because I love all the different cameras. I know a lot of the cameras I'm buying are kind of old. Not this one or the Sony or the Fuji. I mean, I'm buying a lot of new stuff too, but for very specific reasons that have nothing to do with improving my photography, with the exception of this camera. This one definitely improved my photography personally and professionally. This camera made sense. But all these other cameras, yeah, nothing to do with improving my photography, but helping me to enjoy the craft more and get a different experience and just get a smile out of taking a black and white picture. 'Cause I would shoot monochrome all the time, but I didn't always like, you know, enjoy it quite as much. But now I thoroughly enjoy black and white photography with this. When I want to shoot full frame and I want to take out this old 10 or 12-year-old camera, this is the sound of the shutter on this thing. Let's see. Oh, I took the battery out to charge it because I'm gonna. Where is it? Oh, it's down here. God, the battery life in a DSLR is amazing. I didn't have to charge it, but I just make it a habit whenever I take it out to shoot, when I bring it back in the house, after I get the memory, pictures off of it, I recharge the battery, regardless of its state, usually. But man, that's that's just gold to me. Uh, I just love photography. I love gear and I love photography, even though the two you can talk about the two totally separate conversations. Um, there's something magic about the DF. I know, right? It is. It is magical, this camera. And System Mature says, I've bought cameras and lenses specific for photo, video. Yeah, exactly, like my OM1. Very specific. And bought it over, and sold off my EM1 Mark III because it definitely made improvements in areas that I needed it for these very specific reasons. So I do miss the old manual film cameras. They were all the same. Match needle shutter speed on the right. Yeah, I know, right? Let's not even get into film cameras. They're all different too, right? My Hasselblad is very different than my Minolta. It's very different than my Nikon. It's very different than, uh, my Fuji. Not my Fuji. I have this really nice camera. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a rangefinder. It's not a Leica, but it's a nice rangefinder camera. Very Leica quality though. And Eric says, your argument on different cameras not really improving image quality. That's why I bought the GR3X. I'll get the same images, but from my pocket, besides the 7518 will blow the socks off it. I know, right? You didn't buy the GR3 for the image quality, right? You bought it for the form, right? Being pocketable, easy to take with you and carry. Definitely. And Plug Nickel says, gear doesn't matter until it does. With my OM1 birds in flight and pre-burst features that dramatically improve my keeper rate and wildlife, I can imagine using you can't imagine, I think you meant. Exactly. I just said that, right, about my OM1. That is the exception to all of these cameras. There were very specific things and features that it did to improve my photography, wildlife, sports, pictures of my dog Ellie, and doing in my professional work for photo and videos. Definitely some lots of improvements there over my EM1 Mark III. Does Sony have the high resolution? Yes, it does have high res shot mode if that's what you mean. It can do, God, I did it once and it was a pain in the ass. So I don't do it again. The workflow on that camera is awful. Just awful, the workflow on a Sony camera. Oh, just, and I started with Sony back in 2012 or 2013. I started with a Sony camera and I could never get the workflow down. Oh my God, it's a pain. Anyway, it does. Um, Andrew says, I think camera makers have been trying to increase pixel density more than image quality, and the one thing people buy on is numbers. Yep, where more equals better. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just marketing. It's marketing, a lot of it, to some extent. Maybe somebody needs 60 megapixels, right? Just like I need bird detect on my OM1. Maybe somebody needs 60 megapixels. So I don't want to discount the advances and features and things that any camera has. But on the whole, I think your statement is accurate. A lot of times they put things in a camera just to check boxes so that it doesn't get left off the list of recommended cameras, right? And talk about battery life. My father passed away in 1997, 2 years ago. I felt it was time to replace the battery in his OM20 that hadn't been used since he left us. Oh my God, that's crazy. After seeing Rob's 150 to 400 f4.5 makes me want to sell everything and get that lens and an OM1 Mark II, which is I know. That 150 to 400 is pretty amazing. I still have 2 Mercury batteries for my old OM1. I think I've used 2 since 1970. Really? Those old Mercury batteries, I thought, that they drain over time on their own. But you have to cover that hole, right? There's a little hole in that battery you have to cover. Otherwise, it will drain, you know, unless you cover that. Okay. Uh, Grave Hansini says, I started my Ollie experience with the EP2, 12 megapixels. I was shocked how good the pics looked. Yeah, same story with my EM10 Mark II. I was just shocked how good it was. And I was shooting a Nikon D750 when I got that EM10. And that's when I converted. I guess I better check. Yeah. Uh, so down here, this is my batteries toolbox. But the OM1s use this battery, right? This is the wine cell Mercury. And on the top, there's a little bitty aluminum foil that covers the hole. And unless that is covered, the battery is just going to drain to empty. I guess it oxidizes the oxygen getting inside somehow. So actually, I doubt this battery's any good anymore. Oh, there it is. See? That's a little thing on top. I think I put that on there because I used the battery for a little bit. Let's see if it's still good. I know this battery is several years old now because I haven't shot with my own one in a long time. Oh, dang it. I left this on. This thing uses batteries too. When your battery tester has to have fresh batteries, it's ironic, right? But I just charged up a pair. I really have a good habit of charging batteries. I just charged these 4 up. I know these are fresh. Okay. Why isn't that coming on? Hold on. I just charged these. Oh, there it goes. Now I got a screen. All right. Let's see. I don't know which side is positive, but this is I forget how many volts. 1.35. I don't think this has a space for 1.35. We got a 1.2. Close enough. No, I think this is dead. I got nothing. Give me a second. All right. I'll go to this camera here. Let's see. I forget which side is positive, but I think it's the bottom. Nope. It's totally dead. Go this way. Yeah, once you take that foil off, they just... Because this normally there's a piece of aluminum foil on this, but I didn't have the aluminum foil sticker anymore, so I put this other one on that's like a hearing aid battery. The aluminum foil is actually still in there, that little piece there, but it wouldn't stick on the battery, so I just used this other thing instead. Oh well, so I'll keep this just as reference. Yeah, this one is brand new. The foil is still on there. I don't know if you can see that. So this one should be good for years to come, I think. Anyhow, these need to be charged, so I'm going to put those in my charger later. And I see Thomas has joined as a new member. Awesome. Thank you so much for your support, Thomas. I really appreciate it. Again, if you guys want to be a member and support everything I do here, it's just 99 cents. I don't really have any member-specific privileges because I always try to do my best, whether you're a member or not. But maybe we'll do a private stream or something. I don't know. But it's mainly about supporting the work that I do here, and it's so much appreciated if you guys become members. Like I said, I picked the lowest one, just 99 cents, to support everything I do here. Okay, and offline, both online and offline. I do a lot of things to try to help the photographic community. Yeah. Oh, thank you for reminding me. I got to turn this freaking thing off. Ugh. This is a great battery tester. You know, you dial in the battery size and all that. I mean, the real test is if I put it in my OM1, you know, my film OM1, and see if it works, but I doubt it since I got 0 on here. Okay, put that away. I got so much stuff everywhere, but I have to stay organized, you know? So basically like my rechargeable AA and AAAs. You know, I keep them in a case. You can buy these on my deal page for 10 bucks. You get a pack of 12 or something, and I make sure they're all charged. These batteries are for like different cameras. Like my Nikon film cameras use these rounder CR2 batteries. The Nikon film cameras, did I say it? I don't know what camera I'm talking. Nikon film cameras, etc. Before the war, you could still. Oh, I didn't know that. Huh. I just bought mine on Amazon, but it's been a while. I haven't. You know, I have a USB-C light meter, so I don't really need the batteries anymore. It's nicer if it's in the camera, but and then once you set the and you can use your digital camera to set the exposure, and then like I said, film has so much latitude that I have a pretty good feel once I set the initial exposure for the light around me, I can adjust it 1 or 2 stops either way. And get it pretty accurate. You sort of after a while you get an eye for how many stops brighter or darker a scene is. Heavy rumors of a GR4. Yeah, I saw that. That's typical when I buy a camera that a new one. That's right. You bought your camera, then like a day later, there's a rumor that a GR4 is coming out like in a few months. Always the case. Okay. Lino Temis is a member too. Thank you so much, Leno. I really appreciate that. You guys are awesome. Like I said, just being a member here just supports, the live streams and answering comments and questions and all of the different videos. I got so many I got to catch up on. But yeah, there's so much that I do that you don't see in the live streams, obviously. But uh, I usually get up every morning, go in and respond to any questions that I can, and then acknowledge people that have left comments, either with a heart or a short thank you. And then, of course, in the photo club and all the emails that I get, I try to respond to and answer questions or just have a conversation right about photography. Um, because this is all I do, right? I do some professional jobs time to time, just so that I can be legit, right? But most of the work and income is all from this channel, which is very, very little, and even less from my actual professional jobs. I get those time to time, 1 or 2 a month. That's about it, really. Sometimes I'll go a few months without a job, and then I'll get 3 or 4 in 1 month. But it every little bit helps me so much. I mean, a lot. It's not a small thing to me when somebody gives me just even a 99-cent membership. It adds, or you use my affiliate link to buy something. Every dollar counts in this household, um, and it's really appreciated. So thank you for your support. But I think I'll call it here. It's been almost 3 hours, and ironically, my voice is actually a little sharper than it was when I started. But I'm talking a lot slower, and I'm struggling ways to form a sentence now. So thanks so much for coming in today. I really appreciate it. I'll be back probably tomorrow or Tuesday for a shopping live stream where we're going to talk about buying things online. I bought a lot of stuff. I bought so much stuff, accessories stuff, right? Some of it I'm not getting until next week, but I have a few things that came in that I'm going to share with you guys that I thought were pretty cool and a good deal. Some not such a great deal. So, and thank you, Mark, for using my affiliate links. It's greatly appreciated. And but I'll be back. I'll be back for hardcore selling on Amazon maybe even K&F. K&F's has got some great deals. I bought a lot of stuff from K&F, and I'm gonna show you how to get a really good deal on K&F. Uh, beyond what, the 20-25% coupons that I give you guys, there's also another interesting way to save another 10% on top of that, accumulated. So you can save 35%. So I'm going to try and do that on Tuesday. All right. Thanks again for watching.